Many businesses try to find pipeline bottlenecks by looking inside stages. They ask, which stage feels crowded? Which stage has the most opportunities? Which stage seems slow? That sounds reasonable, but very often the real bottleneck is not sitting inside the stage itself. It is sitting between stages. That distinction matters because a pipeline can look active inside each stage while still slowing down badly at the transition points. An opportunity may remain visible. A stage may still hold movement. The system may still appear organized. But if opportunities are not moving cleanly from one condition to the next, the pipeline is not flowing well. It is accumulating friction. This is why bottlenecks are often harder to see than businesses expect. They do not always appear as obvious stage failure. More often, they appear as weak transition. A lead reaches the edge of qualification, but does not cross clearly. A proposal exists, but does not move toward decision with enough momentum. A conversation stays active, but the next stage never becomes solid enough to earn progression. Now, the pipeline still looks alive, but movement is getting trapped between one stage and the next. That is the real problem. Because a bottleneck is not only where opportunities sit, it is where opportunities stop converting from one meaningful condition into another. And if the business looks only at stage volume, it may miss the place where flow is actually breaking. This is why bottlenecks usually hide between stages, not inside them. The stage is where the slowdown becomes visible. The transition is where the slowdown often begins.
What makes this difficult is that transitions often fail without looking dramatic. An opportunity does not disappear. It simply does not advance cleanly. The case stays visible. The conversation continues. Some level of activity remains. So the business assumes the stage is still functioning well enough. But visible activity can hide weak conversion. That is the key difference. A stage may look healthy because opportunities are still sitting inside it. Yet if too few of those opportunities are reaching the next real condition with enough speed and clarity, the problem is not stage presence. It is transition failure. This is why bottlenecks often survive longer than they should. The business sees cases inside the stage and keeps focusing on what is happening there. But the more useful question is different. What is failing to cross? What is not converting? What condition is not being earned clearly enough to allow the next stage to become real? That is where bottlenecks become visible. Not only in how many opportunities exist, but in how many stop at the edge of progression. A pipeline should not only show where opportunities are sitting, it should make it easier to see where movement stops becoming credible. Because once that is visible, the business stops blaming the stage alone and starts examining the transition logic that is actually weakening the flow. When transitions are weak, the pipeline starts creating a false reading of health. The stage still has volume. The names are still there. The opportunities have not been lost. So the system appears populated. But population is not the same as flow. A bottleneck between stages means the pipeline is holding opportunity weight without turning that weight into forward movement. That is expensive because the business keeps spending time reviewing, touching, and discussing opportunities that are no longer converting well enough into the next meaningful condition. This is where stage volume becomes misleading. A crowded stage may not mean strong pipeline interest. It may simply mean that opportunities are arriving there faster than they are leaving it. That is a very different signal. It means the problem is not what exists inside the stage, it is what is failing to pass through it. This is why bottlenecks should be read through conversion quality, not just through stage density. A healthy stage does not only contain opportunities, it releases enough of them into the next stage with enough consistency to keep the pipeline flowing. If that is not happening, the stage may still look active, but the transition is already weakening the whole system underneath. That is what makes between-stage bottlenecks so important to detect. They slow the pipeline before the slowdown is named clearly. And once that hidden drag builds up, later revenue problems become much easier to trigger. This is why a strong pipeline needs to make transitions easier to evaluate, not just stages. A business should be able to see what condition was supposed to be reached, what evidence was missing, and why the next stage did not become real often enough. Without that, bottlenecks stay vague. People say things like, "This stage feels slow," or "We have too many cases sitting here." But those descriptions are still too broad. A better system asks, what exactly is failing to happen between this stage and the next one? Is qualification too soft? Is the next step too unclear? Is handoff too weak? Is timing too slow? Is confidence too high for opportunities that are not truly ready? Those are transition questions. And transition questions usually reveal more than stage labels do. Because once the business sees what is failing at the boundary, it becomes much easier to improve the flow itself. That is the real value. A bottleneck is not only where opportunities gather, it is where progression loses enough strength that crossing into the next condition stops happening with healthy consistency. When that becomes visible, the pipeline stops being a list of crowded stages. It starts becoming a system that can actually diagnose where movement is breaking down.
This is also why weak transitions often create the wrong response inside the business. When a stage looks crowded, the instinct is usually to fix the stage itself. More follow-up, more pressure, more attention inside that category. But if the real problem is the transition between stages, those fixes often miss the cause. The business works harder inside the slowdown without improving the condition required to move past it. That creates waste, because activity increases, but conversion between stages does not improve enough. Now the pipeline feels managed, yet the bottleneck remains. This is where diagnosis matters. A case may not be moving forward because the next step is too vague, or because the handoff does not transfer enough context, or because confidence is too high before the opportunity is truly ready, or because the criteria for entering the next stage are too soft to create real progression. Those are not stage problems alone, they are boundary problems. And if the business keeps treating them as if they were only stage problems, the pipeline becomes heavier without becoming healthier. That is why bottleneck thinking has to go deeper than stage count. The business should not only ask where opportunities are slowing, it should ask what is failing to convert them into the next meaningful condition. That question changes the quality of action. Because once the transition is understood, the response becomes more precise. And precision matters. A crowded stage is only the symptom. The bottleneck is usually living in what opportunities are not crossing cleanly enough to keep the flow strong.
When the business starts reading bottlenecks between stages, instead of only inside them, the whole pipeline becomes easier to manage. Because now the question is no longer, why is this stage so full? It becomes, why are these opportunities not becoming the next condition cleanly enough? That is a much stronger question. It shifts attention from visible accumulation to broken progression. And broken progression is what actually weakens the system. A healthy pipeline does not only need enough opportunities in each stage, it needs enough successful passage between stages to keep momentum alive across the whole flow. That is what bottlenecks interrupt. They do not always kill activity, they kill conversion between conditions. That is why they matter so much. A business can stay busy while its transitions stay weak. It can keep reviewing stages, touching opportunities, and pushing follow-up, while the real point of failure keeps sitting at the boundary where movement should have become clearer and did not. This is why bottlenecks usually hide between stages, not inside them, because the stage shows where opportunity is waiting. The transition shows why the waiting is happening. And once the business learns to read that difference clearly, the pipeline stops looking like a collection of slow categories. It starts looking like a flow system that can actually reveal where momentum is being lost before the slowdown spreads further.